welcome to my very first podcast. My name's Jo. I'm CrochetKnitLovebyJo on Instagram. I'm a little bit nervous because I've wanted to do a podcast for ages and have been putting it off. I wondered if anybody would actually watch it or find it of any interest. But I've taken the plunge because even if nobody watches it, I get to talk about yarn and projects and things I've made and patterns I like. So it's a win-win for me. I live on the south coast with my husband Cowl, our 13-year-old son Jake, and our slightly hyper dog Ellie. She's a little Yorkshire Terrier, 16 months old. Our son can quite often be found under a crochet blanket of mine, and our little dog can quite often be found on top of the blanket. So they're definitely well used in our house. I have been crocheting for more than 8 years. I started crocheting because I wanted a more sociable craft. I'm a paper crafter, have done that for a number of years, but used to find I could be a bit antisocial with it and would sit upstairs in the craft room making all the things, but not always spending enough time with the family. A lot of you who have hobbies will appreciate that sometimes they can take over. So I looked at crocheting. My nan, my dad's mum, used to crochet. She was self-taught. Sadly, I never got the opportunity for her to teach me, but I've been told I'm a lot like her, so it was probably inevitable that I would end up crocheting. I originally started to learn to crochet. I tried YouTube, which has amazing tutorials. Couldn't get my head around it. It just didn't click. So I found a really lovely shop that sadly is no longer here in Hastings called Knit Connection, which a mum and daughter ran, and they started me off on my crochet journey. I originally made a really small square, about that big, which took me 2 lessons. I used to go there on a Saturday, couldn't get my hook into the stitches, and thought I'm never ever going to get my head around this. Then between a handful of lessons and YouTube, which I went back to, it suddenly one day clicked and I got it, and it made a lot of sense and have never looked back. In 2020 I decided, because obviously as we're all aware we had lockdown, quite a challenging time for all of us in one way or another. So I decided to challenge myself and learn to knit. I did dabble with knitting a number of years ago, but never really sort of took off, got into it. But what I did find, because having learnt to crochet, I actually found it easier to get my head around knitting. And that was, nearly 2 years ago, and I haven't looked back with that. I'm mad about knitting and crochet. I would do it all day long if I could, if I didn't have to do all the boring, sensible work things and house things and family. My family do understand, so it's fine. It's notorious that if ever we're going anywhere, my husband will say, "Have you got your yarn bag?" Because he knows how much I enjoy both crocheting and knitting. I think for me, it's a really good way of switching off. I am a nightmare for sitting still. I'm always, busy and doing things. Oh, this needs doing that. And my brain is 100 miles an hour. So I found that by knitting or crocheting, I will actually sit there and relax and do a project. I take a lot of pride in what I do, but also it's really good for my head and well-being to actually sit and take a bit of time out. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. What I intend to do with these podcasts is I'll go through some of the projects that I'm working on, some finished objects, patterns that I may be working on or like to share with yourselves. Talk about project bags, any yarn dyers out there. I'm a massive fan of yarn dyeing. I've recently started dabbling in yarn dyeing myself. I didn't appreciate how much it hurts your back, because obviously you're standing for long periods doing it. It's not an attractive job. You're there with a big mask on because of the powders. But I'm really enjoying creating different colours and skeins of yarn, so I have a big appreciation of that. But hopefully as I get more into it and the nerves calm down, I'm aware that I'm blinking quite a lot, which isn't great, but that is nerves. Hopefully as we get more into it, I hope that everyone will get something out of it. If you're not a crochet or knitter, then I hope even if it inspires one person to take up the craft, then that would be amazing. What I also want to do as part of these podcasts is do some giveaways. I have a number of different items for giveaways. Also, it may include some of my own hand-dyed yarn. We shall see how it goes. So from podcast number 2, that's when I'll start doing some giveaways. This is kind of an introduction, and I'll obviously talk about a couple of other projects. One thing which I thought I would show first is my very first crochet blanket, which is huge. When I was learning to crochet, they had me doing just double crochet. So I've learnt the UK way of crocheting. If it was the US way, it would be a single crochet would be a double crochet in UK terms. So I started off doing double crochets and then got taught how to do a granny stitch. So the good old granny square, I love a granny square blanket. I started doing the centre, which took me ages. Those of you who crochet, when you're first learning to do a granny square, you just can't get your head around how you start off with the centre. What I found was I did the centre, and then out of sheer fear, I thought, I can't start another one. I'm just going to keep going and going. I learned how to change colours, and it has gone on from there. So this was my, let's find the end of it, my very first blanket. There's my very first granny square. You'll see little bits of thread poking out because I wasn't very good at sewing ends in. It was more just keep going, keep going. And also I'm really bad with blankets where I don't always sew my ends in as I go. I'm one of those that has a million ends at the end of the projects. I admire anyone who sews them in as you go. So this was the square in it's really cheap yarn, but it was great for practicing on. The only thing I have found with the cheap yarn is because of the sheer weight of the blanket, it's actually split in a couple of places and I have to repair it. So it isn't a blanket that we use a lot in our house, purely because it wouldn't last 5 minutes. So what I did do with this blanket was I started the granny square and I kept going and going. So there is the square. It's huge. I can't even fit it on the screen. It covers a king size bed. So it's going and going, but you will see as I go along, there you go, lots of little random ends. I naively thought, oh, it doesn't matter if you see the odd one on that side because you won't see it on the other side. Yeah, you do. Obviously. So that was a learning curve. But I am a sentimental old soul and I have actually kept this blanket because it still makes me smile. I loved making it. I was so happy when I finished making it and proud that I'd actually made something like this, although it isn't the best with all the ends poking out. But it's a reminder of where I started. I think it's really good to look back on projects you've made. So what I would do, because I have a number of crochet blankets, is I will look at bringing one on each podcast so you can have a look. I will aim to always remember the designer's name or the name of the pattern. My memory isn't what it used to be, but I should make sure I'm prepared. One thing so on knitting, which I'm wearing currently, Black Sheep Wools, Lynn Rowe. I've probably said your name wrong. I'm so sorry, Lynn. I'm not always good at pronunciations. But she actually designed the Bet Wixmas 2020 shawl, which my husband, who is a yarn enabler, bought me. I haven't actually started it. I'm sure I'm not alone with having all the projects. But this one was the 2021 and I actually started it and I finished it. But the only thing I did do was I missed out on the yarn colours that I wanted. It sold out so quickly. So I used Malabrigo Rios yarn because I have quite a few skeins of this yarn. I love it. It has a lovely stretch. and this was Frank Ochre and the grey was Sandstorm. It washes really well. It's a super wash yarn and it's a worsted weight, although I find it's in between a worsted and a double knit. I've done a number of hats in this, which I should show you on different podcasts. So this shawl it's a lovely pattern. It's a free pattern. I will on my podcast recommend maybe it'll be a free pattern or a paid for pattern each time. I think it's really good to share, and those of you who use Ravelry, I have so many patterns in there. I've had a lot of free patterns. I've bought a number of patterns. Will I ever finish them all? No. My yarn, my husband has already said this, my yarn and patterns and projects will all outlive me, but it makes me happy, so that's the main thing, isn't it? So this is my shawl. Going to have a look on Black Sheep Wools. It's a really lovely pattern by Lynn. Another lovely pattern which is out on the 3rd of February. I'm fortunate that I've been a pattern tester for a number of crochet designers and knitting designers. I really enjoy being a pattern tester. It enables me to expand on my stitch knowledge, to challenge myself with some of the other designs, but also it's a good way of me sticking to a project. One thing I'm really bad for is I will start a project, then I'll get distracted and then I'll start another one, and before you know it you've got a ton of whips, work in progress, sitting in boxes and bags that it's always nice when you find them again. It's probably not the best for being organised, if I'm honest. So this cowl, it's called Morning Cozy Cowl. It's by Rosie Posy Knits, who's on Instagram. And this pattern is being released on the 3rd of February. So let me turn it the correct way. It has trees on it. So it's a colour work one. It has snowflakes. And my favourite, the little cups. So the cups, coffee cups, they'll be my coffee cups in my case, or hot chocolate, and different patterns on it. And it's also a double-sided one, so you can wear it either way. I love this. So I have made this. I didn't use the yarn that the designer had on the pattern. I used, I've kept the label, Sock Share DK by Co-op Knits or Coop Knits. Probably got that wrong as well. And I made it using the double knit, so I was fairly spot on with gauge, and when you do it you end up blocking it before you finish it, which was fantastic, because where I've done some other colour work in the past, sometimes I'm quite tight with that kind of stitch and I can end up pulling it too tight, and then the odd stitch will snap and then I end up with a little hole in it. I did it with a colour work hat. So that's a valuable lesson that I learnt when I was pattern testing this. So this is a lovely pattern. I am going to wear this a lot. I do give a number of my projects away. I've got a number of family members who are really knit worthy and friends. This one I'm not giving away. No, I'm keeping it all for me because I love it. Another cowl that I've just finished, which is a knitted cowl, is this one, which is lovely yarn by Kate Celine, who's an English dyer, and she dyes and does her own free patterns. You can quite often find her under her stairs having a chat with all of us viewers. And this was originally, it came in little skeins, little I think it's 5 grams, little bundles of yarn. I bought 2 of my close friends a kit each, and the idea was we would make a slouchy hat. One of my friends made the hat first and actually ended up undoing it because she found it was too slouchy on the back. A slouchy hat isn't everyone's preference, so she undid it and picked up again and did the edge. My other friend I bought the kit for, she has done a cowl, and so not wanting to be left out, I've actually done a cowl. and it's lovely. Whilst this is a really thick warm cowl, this is more of a lightweight one. It's actually sock yarn, but it's a lovely lightweight cowl if you just want something on your neck. I sometimes get a bit too hot, so I wouldn't necessarily wear this one indoors, though I am wearing it now because it is super snuggly. This is perfect for that. So go and have a look on Kate Celine's website. She has a load of really great patterns and they're all free. Another thing I will show is a whip, which those of you who don't know is works in progress. I was fortunate enough with my husband, who is quite sorry, I'm just trying to get my pattern, quite tolerant of all the yarn. He always tells me I have too much yarn, but then will buy me yarn. So I'm not sure what that is. So what he bought me at Christmas is the Knitting Gift Shop do a number of lovely kits, and they did the Moss Stitch Rib hand warmer, and it came in this lovely little basket and different coloured yarns. So it came in, I'm just going to get little cakes of yarn. So there was a pink and like a mauvey colour, and it's to make the wrist warmers. So the wrist warmers I would be making is that colour. Came with some beautiful stitch markers, which are adorable. I have a lot of stitch markers. Never have too many stitch markers. And it came with a little Christmas tree and little bells and adorable gingerbread man, which was a lovely gift, just having that on its own. So I finally started them, and they are wrist warmers. So that's the bottom of it. It has a moss stitch at the bottom, and then you knit your way up. I'm a little bit further on, but I need to start for the thumb shortly. But they're lovely. I love a wrist warmer, and I also like it when you get a little kit. I'm actually being good where I don't ask for big bags of yarn. Obviously you can see I have a few, maybe over there. We don't need to talk about how much yarn I've got, but I have a kind of a thing now that I won't buy yarn if I've already got it. So my husband will get me a kit. So I've got a number of kits up here that I'll show as I go along on podcasts, and obviously that kit that I really enjoy having a small portable project I can take with me. So what I will take with me is one of my yarn bags. We also don't need to talk about how many yarn bags I have. This is my latest yarn bag. On Etsy, Rick Rack Room is a really lovely maker of yarn bags. A couple of my dear friends actually have a couple of this lady's yarn bags because they're great. They're really well made, and they have a couple of pockets inside them there. And she does a number of bags where she'll do, as you can have a zipped one or you can get the drawstring. These are great for shawl sets. If you had a jumper project, they're a really good sign. You can easily fit 4 skeins of yarn in there. So if you find Rick Rack Room on Etsy, just double checking I'm saying the name right, she'll be on there. They're really good priced. She often has a sale on her Etsy shop, so it's worth going to have a look. This one got purchased not because I needed it, but it had yarn balls on it. I know I'm a bad person, aren't I? All the yarn. So one thing that I wanted to mention also was my mug. Love a nice mug. This obviously is yarn related, is a granny square, and it's Karma Gets Bullies, I believe, is the Etsy seller who does these mugs. Sells a number of different items, but I just happened to spot this. I was looking for a granny square mug, and this is perfect. I love it. I will put the name down below just in case I've got the name wrong. So one of the things I want to make sure that I do talk about on each podcast is a yarn dyer. There's a lot of different yarn dyers out there with different types of yarn, different, you know, creative makes. I think it's good to share it. I hadn't heard of this dyer. I actually, funny enough, found out about the dyer because my husband randomly bought me a skein for, it was my birthday a couple of years ago. Dragon Hill Studio is the yarn maker. Self-striping yarn in yarn cakes, which is really lovely because you can see how the colours will come out. It's a really good way of seeing that, and it comes with a little 25 gram of superwash merino, which has yak and nylon in it. That's a mini cake. These particular sets are a subscription set that I get. The only one drawback I will say with getting this is I actually think it's too nice to open. That will be the bit I'll struggle with. I do look forward to knitting them up. I am trying to do more socks. I've only actually ever knitted one pair of socks, but I think these would look fantastic. So someone to have a look up on their www.dragonhillstudio.co.uk and have a look for them. That's a really lovely dyer. Talking of dyers, one thing I'm doing myself is dabbling with dyeing. It does kind of seem the natural progression for me to go down that route of yarn dyeing. I am not always the best at, if I need a certain colour, before you know it, I've bought a colour and then a couple of other colours that I didn't need, but it meant you got free postage or for whatever reason. If I just need that one colour, my idea was, well, I'll just dye it myself, which I actually have done. I needed a really dark bluey grey, and I've actually done that for a project. What I have just finished is making some little rainbow sets. A couple of my dear friends have actually got a set of this each. I thought it'd be nice to give them to them, but also to get some feedback. So that is my rainbow set I dyed. And though I had hoped to have a different green, a bit more of a gardeny green, it's actually more teal. I actually really like them all together. I do love a teal. It's quite a bright blue. What you do find when you're dyeing this sort of way is you can end up with it being variegated. But knitted up, one of my friends is already knitting with it. It actually knits up really nice with the slight variegation. But that is a little set that I've played around with, and they're 20 gram minis. So I will look at doing some giveaways as well. It'll be some makers yarn or bags, but it will also occasionally be some of the yarn I've dyed myself, because it's good for other people to see it. And also I really do like giving. It makes me a lot happy. Yeah, I really do enjoy it. I love when I make one of my handmade hats and give it, if someone really enjoys it and they wear it, that's enough for me. I'm happy. So you have to be knit worthy for me to make you something, though, I will say. So I think I've waffled enough. I hope that you've enjoyed this little insight into my yarn world. I hope to do these podcasts regularly. I'm hoping I won't be quite as nervous and fidgety and blinking. I look forward to chatting again and doing some giveaways and talking about different projects and makes on the needle. I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope to see you very soon. Take care. Bye.